Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're watching. Welcome to another edition of Crime Time with Dutyron and Ed Wallace. We are retired New York City police detectives and 9/11 World Trade Center first responders. Hey, if you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, so you'll get all notifications. You'll know when Dutyron and Ed Wallace goes live or upload another video. Hey, tonight we're going to get into Chad Daybell, the sentencing. The jury of his peers sentenced him to death ×6. And we're also going to talk about Michelle Troconis, sentenced on Friday. We're going to get into it in a few, but we're here with Ed Wallace. He's in Morocco, so it's nighttime for him. Ed, how you doing? And a lot of justice being doled out, and maybe lack of justice. Your thoughts on Chad Daybell and Troconis? We're going to get into it today.
Chad Daybell, 100% justice. Troconis, not 100% justice.
Yeah, and I think the feelings are mutual amongst our true crime enthusiasts and the folks who are looking for justice in a case where in Connecticut, a mother of 5 was brutally murdered. We don't even have her remains or her body recovered. And Michelle Troconis is walking away with a 14.5-year slap on the wrist, 5 years probation. She could be looking at 10 years of serving time and then getting out and doing 10 years of probation, parole/probation. I didn't agree, just as you and I talked on the members only, I didn't agree with that. But let's also give thanks and praise to our replay viewers, the Patreon supporters, the channel members, and all the folks who positively engage in this community. Today, for about 40 minutes, we're going to get your thoughts and your feelings on if justice was served. But we're going to start out with Chad Daybell, who, again, this is a brutal case that has spanned many years and many different locations, taking us to Hawaii, and also with parts of it down in Arizona. Ed, we have so many different components, and we talked about how we have to get a better communication system of interagencies and outside agencies communicating with each other, because these three killing machines were running amok in the United States and nobody was stopping them. That's the crazy part, right?
Yeah, well, it's a cult lifestyle they were living, and it's just, these are not reasonable people. Okay, they're not sane. I'm not saying they're insane, but what they did was not something that normal, everyday people would even think of doing. Okay, the amount of murders that you can possibly attribute to them is mind blowing. That they thought that they would get away with this.
Yeah,
because and the scary part was they did for a period of time, and so I believe that empowered them to do the final deeds. Okay, with the children and so forth. I mean, this is just unbelievable, and all these wasted lives.
Right. And you look at Tammy Daybell. That was Chad Daybell's high school sweetheart. They knew each other from high school, and he just, with the flip of the switch, made her dark, and her numbers were in all this craziness, and she was eliminated. Let's take a listen to the ABC affiliate in New Jersey, in Connecticut. Let's hear what they had to say.
The dramatic scene inside an Idaho courtroom where convicted triple murderer Chad Daybell was sentenced to death. ABC's Alex Prochet joins us now with more. Good morning to you, Alex.
Good morning, Janae. It was the details of this case that were especially heinous, which is why once Chad Daybell was found guilty on all 8 counts against him, the prosecution sought the death penalty, and the jury agreed.
The court is directed that the defendant would be sentenced to death on those counts.
Chad Daybell sat emotionless as a jury of his peers sealed his fate. And this morning, the so-called doomsday author sentenced to death after being convicted in the 2019 murders of his first wife, Tammy Daybell, and his second wife's 2 children, 16-year-old Tylee Ryan and 7-year-old Joshua J.J. Vallow.
This is the best justice we can possibly get. It brings closure for everybody that's been hurt.
The 2 children were last seen in September of 2019. Prosecutors say Daybell and his now wife, Lori Vallow, claimed their kids were zombies and conspired with Lori's brother, Alex Cox, to kill them. After nearly 10 months of searching and working the case, investigators found Tylee and JJ's bodies buried in shallow graves in Daybell's backyard in Idaho. Prosecutors say Tammy Daybell died at the hands of another due to asphyxiation. Lori Vallow, who by then was already in custody, was heard talking to Daybell on a jailhouse phone call during the search of his home.
Were they in the house?
No, they're out to the property.
Are they seizing stuff again?
They're searching.
The jury in this case listened to over...
Ed, I don't know about you, but doesn't he sound like he's like a zombie himself? I mean, no, they're searching.
But he's probably on some drugs, but he had to know that these phone calls were being recorded, so he's very careful in what he's saying.
Right. And also, as we saw during the whole trial, emotionless, no empathy, no tears. They were talking about his wife and just a blank stare. Chad Daybell just sat there like you said, like somebody who's on high amount of medication, or, just he was lethargic and just didn't seem to have this mug that you see here. That's exactly what we saw. And unfortunately, it was on a Zoom meeting. So we didn't get a picture like what we're seeing here with Lori Vallow. You couldn't really see up close facial expressions, but the guy barely moved. I mean, anybody else catch on to that? By a show of hands in the chat with the Chad Daybell sentencing and during the trial, he barely made any expressions or any movements. So I don't know.
It was like he was on tranquilizers.
Something of that, something of that sort.
60 witnesses, but it took them just about 9 hours to recommend the death penalty. FBI investigator Doug Hart telling us their verdict didn't surprise him.
There are certain cases that just stick with you. This is going to be one of those for you.
Oh, absolutely. Both personally and professionally. At the end of the day, there are victims who senselessly were killed, and that loss and that pain is very real for their loved ones and their families. It's very real for us.
Lori Vallow received a sentence of life without parole last year, and investigator Hart tells me that yesterday was emotional for his team. And as they were...
Isn't that funny? Gina L., I just saw this in the chat, said, hey, can someone remind me what Lori got for a sentence? And this reporter, as I saw that chat come through, you got your answer right here. Life without parole.
Preparing to leave the courthouse, they were applauded by the families of the victims. After 5 years, Gio, they're finally getting closure.
They are. And
yeah, so, I mean, that's where we are as it pertains to this case. So much evidence, Ed. And we heard from the prosecutor and her partner at the end. It was Lindsay Blake and Rob Wood. Lindsay Blake, who did a lot of the heavy lifting, she talked about being a new mother and how much emotion, how this affected her, the details, and talking about the details. And we heard the lead investigator, he had to dig through and take breaks, digging through to find the remains of JJ and Tylee, how difficult that was. And you as a crime scene investigator, I'm sure that you can relate to that. Any thoughts or feelings on, maybe talking to the audience, how difficult that is?
Well, as I said time and time again on the show, anytime I was dealing with children's death, it was always hard. Adults, they choose their lifestyles. Okay. Children didn't get a chance to do that. Children didn't get a chance to do all the things growing up that, we get to experience. They didn't get to experience any of the things. We don't know what they could have turned out to be in life and who they could have turned out to be. And, that person was snuffed out needlessly. Why? Because you wanted to leave your wife for this other woman, but you couldn't do just a regular divorce because then you would have no money. So you up the insurance policy, you murder your wife, murder husband. I mean, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. Then you murdered the children, right? Get them out of your life, to get them so you can run off to Hawaii and start your new life together. These people are sick.
Yeah, and then we still have Charles Vallow, husband number whatever 5, 4 with 3. Charles Vallow, innocent bystander here, and he was set up and lured into that home and shot 2 times, shot point blank in the chest, or shot right in the chest by Alex Cox, and they made up this concocted story. That's coming up next, and we heard Larry and Kay talk about this isn't over. We have to go to Arizona, whenever that is, next year when Lori Vallow's trial commences. We don't have a date for that, but that's a whole nother set of circumstances. And had these two not been caught, Ed, you and I talked about this many times, how many more people would have been dead? Melanie Gibb, perhaps, Alex's wife. There's so many other people that could have been in line for this death machine, this triangle of death, as I call it.
Right. Yeah. Alex, Lori. It's a
yeah.
Shallow Vallow. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah, the list just goes on and on. I want the folks to listen to the prosecutors, because standing behind these brave men and women are the ones who did this investigation. And this is a tad bit long, but I think it's well worth the listen, because they talk about how much work went into this and how much. And I want to bring us back on just for a second. People don't realize that investigators of every different kind of walk of life have feelings. We are not machines. We have a heart and we have empathy. We care about the cases that we cover, the cases that we work. And you're going to hear this prosecutor talk, and they're going to talk about how difficult this case was. And you can't just walk away from it and it goes away, right, Ed?
No, you can't. I mean, listen, as I said, the child deaths hurts the most. The children don't get to pick who their parents are. Okay. And I said, any knucklehead can produce a baby, but not everybody can be a parent. Okay.
Yeah.
There's just certain people in this world who should not be parents. Okay. Who should not give birth to children, because they don't give a shit about anybody but themselves.
There you go. And that's the truth.
Your life as a parent, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ron, as a parent, when you have a child, your life, you cease to exist for yourself anymore. And all your existence now is for the care and welfare of your children. And it's for the rest of your life. There's no pension. There's no retirement from being a parent. No. It's there. When the kids are small, you have small children, small problems. When the kids are older and adults, you have larger problems. They're always going to be your children. And, it's up to you to raise them the right way and guide them through life. And just like it's the government's responsibility for the protection of their citizen, it is the parents' responsibility to protect and raise their children correctly.
Absolutely, 100%. Our parents' job is never done. You know when our job is done? When we take our last breath. That's when our job is done.
Even then, it's not done.
Yeah, absolutely. And you heard, we heard from multiple people at the end of this, from families. We heard Larry and Kay, and they talk so great about the support that they received from not just the prosecutors and the detectives, but they talked about social media, and they talked about Lauren and her husband from Hidden True Crime, Lauren Matthias, and she's been standing right by her side along with her husband, Dr. John, and they gave them lots of kudos and lots of thanks, and they were just so gracious. But yeah, I mean, these lives were cut short. It was just completely unnecessary, because there would have been somebody that would have stepped in to take these kids. And we know that, that Larry and Kay were more than willing to do that. So let's listen to this. This is going to be a little lengthy, and I'll play it maybe on a double speed so we can get through it. But let's take a listen. This is Lindsay Blake.
Almost 5 years ago, the communities of Fremont and Madison County lost 3 wonderful human beings, Tylee Ryan, J.J. Vallow and Tammy Daybell. As a Fremont prosecutor on this case, this has been a hard-fought battle for both the prosecution team and for the law enforcement agencies that worked tirelessly on this case and never gave up hope. This has been a tough case because of its complexity, both in defense to others. As a prosecutor, I try a lot of criminal cases, but for me, as a new mom, the details of this one just hit differently, and I can't imagine the family's pain. I cannot express enough both my and Fremont County's deep appreciation, gratitude, and admiration for all those who have played a role in seeking and ultimately obtaining justice for the victims in this case. This case has been about speaking for and seeking justice for the lives of 3 wonderful humans whose lives were cut way too short by the selfish desires of the defendant and his co-defendant, Lori Vallow. We are pleased with the outcome that justice has been served for the victims in this case. This has been a collective effort between multiple agencies working in collaboration to see this case through for the victims and their families. There are so many people who have been involved and helped behind the scenes, and every last one of them has been instrumental in obtaining justice. When I came into office in 2021, after discussing the case with others in Fremont County and collaborating with the Fremont County Sheriff's Office, a decision was made to bring the case back to Fremont County because we felt strongly the case of J.J. Vallow, Tylee Ryan, and Tammy Daybell should be combined and tried together. You heard from some of the victims' families how these 3 have been intertwined forever. The Fremont County Sheriff's Office was instrumental in the decision and support of the prosecutor's office in making that difficult decision. I cannot express enough Fremont County's gratitude to Rob Wood and the Madison County Prosecutor's Office. They started this case looking into the whereabouts of JJ and Tylee. Then when the children's remains were discovered, Rob Wood stepped in without hesitation when my predecessor requested he take the case as a special prosecutor, and then ultimately agreed to combine resources to pursue justice for the victims in this case. A special thanks to Fremont County Deputy Prosecutors Rocky Wixom and Tanya Rawlings for their dedication and efforts in both this case and the case.
Ed, I forgot completely about that. Thank you, Great Dane Mom. Lindsay's dad passed suddenly 4 days into this trial. She only took 1 day off for court. She's a strong woman. Ed, I thought about you with your brother on 9/11 when I read this message. And the only reason I thought of that is because I was amazed at the strength that you showed when your brother passed away on September 11, 2001, and you were out at that pile the next day. So kudos to this woman and to yourself too, Ed. So I wanted to put us back on for that.
Thank you.
Takes great strength to do something like that. And Lindsay and also Ed, unbelievable.
Against Lori Vallow. The Attorney General's office, in first taking on the prosecution of the murder of Tammy, and then by their agreement to allow us to have Deputy Attorney General Ingrid Beatty join the prosecution team. The FBI for stepping in without hesitation when the children were missing, with their extensive experience and their resources, and continuing to see this case through to the end. The Rexburg Police Department for starting the investigation into the whereabouts of JJ and Tylee, and then never giving up the search. The Fremont County Sheriff's Office for their tenaciousness in pursuing the investigation into the death of Tammy Daybell. Arizona law enforcement for sharing everything they had uncovered and their willingness to come to testify in the cases here in Idaho. This became a joint investigation, a joint effort to find the children, and then ultimately to seek justice on their behalf. I've been absolutely amazed and astounded at the level of investigation, professionalism of the officers involved, and the camaraderie that has been formed. I tell them all the time, they make my job a lot easier. We extend our support to Arizona in their continued pursuit of justice for the additional victims, Charles Vallow and Brandon Boudreau. We also extend our immense gratitude to the jurors in this case who didn't sign up for this difficult process, but agreed to perform their civic duty. And in rendering this verdict, we hope the victims and survivors of Chad Daybell know that the community as a whole does not tolerate the loss of 3 precious and irreplaceable human beings. We are hopeful that those who have been involved and affected by this case and the actions of the defendant and his co-conspirators can now begin to heal.
Four and a half years ago, Detective Ray Hermosillo walked into our office needing a warrant for what started as a simple search for a Jeep to help an investigation in Chandler, Arizona. This soon turned into a search for two young children, Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow. That investigation merged with the death of Tammy Daybell. Very quickly, multiple law enforcement agencies and prosecutors' offices began working together diligently to find those missing children and determine what happened. Realizing the children's last residence was in Madison County, we began a child protection action to bring the children to safety. When it was clear that Lori Vallow Daybell and Chad Daybell had no interest in helping us locate Tylee and JJ, we took further action in filing charges against Lori and extradited her from Hawaii. The search for Tylee and JJ was nonstop. Every stone was unturned through the diligent team efforts of the Rexburg Police Department, Fremont County Sheriff's Office, the Idaho Attorney General investigators, the FBI, Chandler and Gilbert Police Departments. The willingness of so many different law enforcement agencies to work together and pool resources to obtain justice for these victims is unprecedented. All of these agencies work together with the single goal of justice in mind, and we cannot thank them enough. From the Madison County Prosecutor's Office, we are so grateful for the working relationship and partnership we've had with Lindsay Blake and everyone at the Fremont County Prosecutor's Office in obtaining justice, both in this trial and the trial against Lori Vallow. That includes not only Lindsay, her deputies Tanya Rawling, Rocky Wixom, and all their help staff. I'd also like to thank Ingrid Beatty for being here with us and the Attorney General for allowing her to work with us. And I want to say that Lindsay Blake's dedication to each of the victims in this case has been unwavering. Her willingness to take on this case when she took office, when she didn't have to, was absolutely courageous. It has been an honor to work with her. And I'd also like to thank members of the Madison County Prosecutor's Office who've helped on this case, prosecutors Spencer Rammel, Mackenzie Cole, and Rachel Smith, who've helped on this case. Today, justice was served for Tylee, JJ, and Tammy. 3 innocent victims whose lives were tragically cut short by the selfish and cruel actions of Chad and Lori Daybell, who embarked on a path of destruction that irrevocably altered the lives of countless families and countless individuals. While nothing can undo the immense harm caused, we have worked tirelessly to secure a measure of justice for Tylee, JJ, and Tammy. This week, a diligent and attentive Ada County jury carefully considered the evidence and presented and returned a verdict of guilty on all counts. Last year, an Ada County jury did that for Lori Vallow Daybell as well. Pursuing justice in this case required the unwavering dedication of a large team of public servants who have devoted the last 4.5 years to ensuring we had the evidence to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Again, we extend our deepest gratitude to all the committed law enforcement professionals from these agencies who have made tremendous personal sacrifices in the face of an emotionally and physically challenging case. We are indebted to them for their service. We also want to applaud the incredible strength and resilience of the victims and family members who, despite unimaginable grief, have stood with us these past 4.5 years in our pursuit of the truth. Their support has been invaluable. To all those who held Tylee, JJ, and Tammy in their hearts, we hope these verdicts bring a measure of healing and closure, and may the memory of Tylee, JJ, and Tammy continue to be a blessing to all who knew and loved them. Thank you.
Take a few questions. If anybody has some questions, you can ask some questions if you want.
Go ahead.
I think every attorney handles it a little bit different, and probably every investigator. I think a lot of times there's things that go on behind the scenes that nobody ever gets to see. Everyone compartmentalizes it different or comes up with some form of therapy or stress relief to deal with it. But I think I can speak for everyone that obviously there is an impact. You get to know the victims. You learn so much about their history and their lives that it's like you knew them in life sometimes. And when you hear their families and friends talk about them and they really bring them to life for you, absolutely there's an impact. But I also think that impact then just spurs you on to fight even harder to make sure that we secure justice.
She's getting emotional there.
Oh, yeah.
I believe the fact that those jurors unanimously found every aggravating factor, speaks for itself in
Agreed.
terms of its appropriateness. And I'll leave that at that.
I'm just going to fast forward it because I want you guys to hear the lead detective talk. So this is the lead detective who was out on Chad Daybell's property searching for the remains of JJ and Tylee.
I mean, it feels great. We worked as a team tirelessly for 4 years. Not just myself; it was a collaborative effort. I have a great team. We worked with several different agencies, so it's a team effort. But I think we're all feeling the exact same thing, which is just relief. We're glad it's done. We got justice for JJ, Tammy, and Tylee, so that's what counts.
That's awesome, Great Dane Mom. So again, I wish that they mic'd up the media that's asking the questions, so it's kind of hard to hear the questions. But these are questions as it pertains to the case. But he's answering questions about what they did as a team, investigative wise.
I would say hundreds. Yeah, hundreds of people, hundreds of hours. So it's a relief. Thank you.
We technically had 7 law enforcement agencies, not including the prosecutors, over 3 different states and maybe even more, but 7 law enforcement agencies.
7 different law enforcement agencies over 3 or more different states is what this investigation took us on and led. After this, I'm going to play a clip. Ed, we're going to go back on. I want to play a clip after this of Larry and Kay Woodcock, because they spoke so well. And I think that it's important to play this because they acknowledged not only the prosecutor and the investigators, but they acknowledged the online live streaming community and folks who are there to support them. And I thought it was just so classy for them to do that. So I'm going to grab that and then put that on. Ed, any thoughts about the group? You know, this was a gruesome crime scene that on Chad Daybell's property in the backyard. These folks, again, I keep alluding to it because it's important and everybody understands you never shake this off and you never forget about it, right?
Well, there's no such thing. What you're talking about for the investigators and those that process the scene, yeah, it's gonna, you're gonna have memories of this, and you just have to deal with it appropriately. And then if you can't, then you need to seek help. There's no shame in seeking help for the things that we saw in our jobs. We see things that nobody should see. Okay, man's inhumanity to fellow man is mind-boggling that people can do such things, and to their own flesh and blood, no doubt. It just never ceases to amaze me. Just when you think you saw the most heinous thing you possibly could see in your life, on one day, the next day, something more horrific pops up. It's just mind-boggling. And
just when you think you're amazed at the horrific nature of some type of crime like this, something else comes along. We look at Chad Doberman, killing his son and his other children right on his front lawn there with a long rifle. There's so many of these cases that we could just go on. It's a big long list, but these, like you said, there's no easy way to shake this off because you can never close your eyes and unsee that. And these detectives and investigators that processed that crime scene, they talked about having to take just a few minutes each and had to keep coming in and out of the burial site where they dug up their remains. How gruesome it was. I just feel so bad for these folks, you know.
Not everybody can do what I do. All right. And you know, and we've seen it. I've seen it firsthand where a new crime scene investigator will come into the unit and we start to train them. And then when they get out there, they're like, oh, hell no, I can't do it. I can't do this. I can't do this. And they have to leave. And
Yeah.
so it's best to find that out early in your career as a crime scene investigator, if that is in fact the case, than to get deeper into it and then suffer mentally with what we do.
Yeah, you're right, Ed. You're right. Because the longer you're in it, the more you see. Muddy Paws sends in a $5 super chat, and she says, "Are jurors offered any type of therapy after serving on a jury? They see awful things and are average people." Yeah, these are folks who are not, sworn law. Most of them not sworn law enforcement personnel, not people that work in the medical examiner's field or in the coroner system. I know for a fact that they do offer therapy to them. And I don't remember which case it was that we were just covering, but somebody talked about it. I think the first set of jurors in Lori Shallow-Vallo's trial, they talked about it to Nate Eaton. Now it's coming back to me. And they were offered therapy, and they would go out and they'd have to seek it on their own, and they get reimbursed by the courts. So,
I spent 15 years in crime scene, close to 2,700 major case crime scenes investigated, many of which were homicide, sex crimes, and police involved fatalities and shootings and so forth. And in those 15 years, there was only one time that the police department, in their infinite wisdom, decided to sit us down with mental health professionals to see if we were okay and how we were coping with what we were dealing with. And that was after 9/11. And I said to the psychotherapist, I said, I've been doing crime scene investigations for 15 years. And it's only after this major incident that you decided to sit us down. Yeah. And I said, I know where the studies come from. I know why you're doing this, because of what happened at the Oklahoma City bombing and all the suicides that occurred in the emergency response community after that attack. I said, but you should be doing this on a regular basis with all of the members of the New York City Police Department, but especially the crime scene investigators, for our job and what we see. Okay. Right. It's, and
EMS personnel as well. EMS personnel, they get called to 911 runs for multiple shots fired or multiple people shot, and they often, fire department, EMS, one and the same now in New York City. They're the ones who come up on these gruesome scenes and then they back out. So they're seeing as much as well. So it's
all of us, the fire department, EMS, the medical examiner's office, the first receivers at the emergency rooms, the doctors that are operating on these stab wounds, the shooting victims and so forth. All of us.
Yeah, 100%. And I have Larry and Kay, I have it queued up, but I have something else interesting that I want to play. The coroner who, it's a coroner system set up over in Idaho. So Barbara Butcher talked to us about the coroner's system and how it's flawed, and sometimes you have EMS and EMTs and paramedics who are elected coroners. And here's an interview.
It's worse than that. Sometimes you have tow truck drivers that are elected coroners.
Right. So I want to play this interview because this is the coroner who was on this Daybell case, and she talks about it's still giving her nightmares to this day. So let's take a listen to this. And for those of you who've seen this before, let it be known in the chat if you've seen this interview. So again, this is a candid interview of Brenda Dye. She's the Fremont County coroner. And she talks about having nightmares still to this day.
Nightmares. I still have a hard time. We still have a trial coming up next spring. So then I have to relive everything again. It's just reliving it over and over again. And all those emotions come back. And it's just, It's hard.
You could see her breathing heavy there. It's like it's actually hard for her to talk about it.
I am inside the Fremont County EMS building today with Brenda Dye. She is the coroner for Fremont County. A lot of people have watched our coverage of the Lori and Chad Daybell case.
Yes.
And you were telling me off camera that bar none has been your most difficult case that you've dealt with.
By far my most difficult.
So you were involved in the investigation for Tylee and JJ and Tammy.
Yes.
I'm sure you're bombarded.
How many folks in the chats have seen this interview or maybe have seen it and just forgot about it? But I saved this because this had a profound impact on me when I watched this last night. This woman, albeit this is not a brand new interview, this was in between trials. She was bracing for Chad Daybell's trial to commence, and she was saying how she has to relive it again. And again, this is the Fremont County coroner who was the coroner who came out to the scene when these.
Is she the coroner or is she the death investigator?
She's the coroner.
Bombarded with questions about this case all the time. Anything you want to add as far as your perspective on the investigation, giving closure to these families?
Finally able to release JJ's body. By far my most difficult. It's just hard to imagine someone doing that to someone they care for and love. It was really hard, and especially I've got kids and I just can't imagine that and what the families have had to go through.
The pictures of the bodies were shown in the courtroom during Lori's trial. And Nate Eaton, who covered that story, it was it's images he'll never forget, is what he has said. And many others who were there in the courtroom have said that.
I could take this question because Ed's doing something, but the difference between the coroner and a legal medical death investigator is that the legal medical death investigator is Barbara Butcher type, and they go out to the scene and they are responding to the scene. A coroner just is responsible for cause and manner of death. They don't do the autopsies. They sit in on the autopsy. She talks about this here. So there's an extreme difference between a legal medical death investigator and a coroner.
The coroner, well, a legal medical death investigator can be in both systems, though. It can be in a coroner system or a medical examiner system. The coroner is an elected official, typically, and doesn't have to have a medical background at all. And they will have to hire medical legal death investigators to do the scene investigation. The coroner also has to farm out the autopsies to pathologists, because in most cases the coroner is not a pathologist. Okay, and so they farm that out to hospitals and university pathologists, not all of which are forensic pathologists, where in the medical examiner's office, you'll have a series of certified forensic pathologists, doctors that will be doing these autopsies on a full-time basis for that entity.
Right. Meezy's mom says she was not very assertive on the stand and Pryor went after her, but it didn't really work out for Pryor going after her, did it? This is probably a woman who has limited capacity and has not seen many gruesome scenes as this. This, again, is not your everyday crimes that happen. And we hope and pray to God that these things don't happen on a regular basis anywhere. But in some of the inner cities, like, Brownsville, East New York, Chicago, you have high crime rate, and violent murders, violent deaths are running, quite rampant there. And we have a lot of them. So in her particular situation, I don't think she's seen much of this. And it's clear and apparent in this interview that it's difficult for her to talk about it, and rightfully so. But again, thank you for explaining the differences for the folks in the chat, Ed.
Yes.
You've talked about how as a coroner, you have to distance yourself emotionally.
Yes.
But was this one of those ones that was particularly difficult?
Yes,
for you?
It is, and I still have nightmares. I still have a hard time, and every time we have a new trial, we still have a trial coming up next spring, so then I have to relive everything again. It's just reliving it over and over again, and all those emotions come back, and it's just, it's hard. It's hard. A lot of cases are harder than others, but this has been really hard for me.
What's the number one question you get asked by members of the public?
She breaks it down.
They asked if I was in on the autopsies, and they just thank me and ask me how I do it, how I was able to sit through that.
A lot of people might, like, the coroner doesn't perform autopsies.
No, we just make sure we get our decedents to the morgue to have the medical examiner perform those autopsies. We do sit in on them, though.
I was going to ask you. So
Yes.
A lot of people might get confused and mix up a medical examiner with a coroner, but they're actually
Yes.
two different jobs entirely.
Correct. A medical examiner is a doctor.
And they're the ones who figure out how the person died, and then they report it back to you, and you pass it along to the family or
Yes.
the police or whoever needs to know.
Correct, yes. If it's undetermined, if we cannot determine a cause of death, then that's when we take our decedents for an autopsy.
Do you want to explain what is the role of the coroner?
The coroner responds to all unattended deaths, which means they weren't attended by a physician or they weren't directly under a doctor's care. So if they're at home or whatever it is, and they pass away, then if they don't have a doctor's care directly over them, then the coroners respond to them. We make sure they get to the funeral home of family choice or on-call funeral home if they don't have a family choice. And then our job is to determine cause of death.
Okay, I want to answer this question for Cheryl because she must have just came in. This is the Brenda Dye, the Fremont County coroner. She responded to or took in the remains of JJ and Tylee Ryan from Chad Daybell's property. So I just wanted to play that just because I wanted you guys to get a feel. I will link it. It's eastidahonews.com. I'll link it in the description. Let me just play quickly, Ed, and I don't know if you have anything you want to add to it, but I want to cue up Larry and Kay Woodcock's statement that they made. But anything about the coroner here that you might want to add into it while I search back
No, she handled that very well.
Yeah, and somebody said in the chat that the prosecutor, the defense attorney, went after her during Lori Vallow's trial and probably at Chad's trial, and that he went hard on her, and maybe she didn't have the right answers that he was looking for. Pretty typical for a defense attorney, correct?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right. So here it is. I think I have it queued up, Ed. Oh yeah, I do. All right, and then we're gonna take questions and wrap it up because Ed's tired, and so on.
Well, we gotta get into Michelle, right?
Right. Yes. But let's just. Oh, I had it queued. There it is. Okay. So this is only a few minutes, but they speak very well. So let's listen to Kay and Larry Woodcock.
He's talking, not me.
Okay, can everybody hear me? We got terrible noise behind us. I wish they'd have turned the fountain off. Everybody has spoken so eloquently.
Can y'all hear him?
As we were leaving the courthouse, the courtroom, Kay asked me, she said, "It's over." And I got sad. Justice has been carried out for everybody involved in this. What made me sad was are all of y'all. You're our family. We have gone through a tragedy, from the judge who's had to endure this every day, to our friends in law enforcement. We're now brothers. I have so much respect for y'all. for this courthouse. We saw justice, equal, honest, and righteous. I look at the faces, and I'm going to tell y'all, I'm going to miss you. Not because I want to be in front of this camera. I did not choose this. It chose us. I'm going to miss y'all. There's a few people. Lauren, Dr. John, how would we have made it without you? Janine, Clint, how they have carried us through this. They have been our eyes, our ears, and our hearts here. Rexburg is a beautiful town. Boise is a beautiful town. Idaho is a magnificent state. They don't deserve this blemish. Kay and I have often spoken. How would it have been different if we were in New York, if we were in California? How would it have been different? Every day, I want to get up. I want to be here for justice, but for y'all. Y'all have all given a lot. The media has been amazing, and I want to personally thank you. My wife, my beautiful wife, my rock. We thank you. I hate to say goodbye. I truly mean that. It's not goodbye. It's until we meet again. So, as I said a long time ago, turn out the lights. The party's over. They say that all good things must end. Let's just call it a night. Thank y'all.
I'm going to say a few things.
Go ahead. Now y'all will get a real speech. I didn't.
No, just this will be short and sweet, I promise. I want to thank everyone here, everybody that's watching, all the support, the emails, the texts, the messages, all these things we get, social media. Everybody's support is how we have gotten through this. And, you know, we're not through yet. So we're very grateful for all of you. And we really wouldn't have made it through this without y'all. And I want to thank y'all. And there was one, I know what? I'll see y'all in Arizona. That's where we'll be next.
All right, so that's how she ended it. We'll see you all in Arizona because they're on to that case. Ed, I want to segue into, the trial of Michelle Troconis. She was found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, tampering with evidence, and a various slew of other charges. But at the end of the day, she was charged with was sentenced to 14 and a half years in prison with 5 years of probation. So it's a total possibility of up to 20 years of incarceration / home monitoring. And they didn't say what that probation would look like. But we know that in the state of Connecticut, if you do good time on the state level, you get out with parole. And sometimes that could be an extra 5 years shaved off your sentence. So if that happened, you should be looking at 9.5 years. We're talking about a mother of 5, Jennifer Farber-Dulos, brutally murdered, and we don't even have her remains. We don't know what happened to her. We did a members only live stream before we did this one, and you and I talked for the whole entire time about this case. I mean, justice, was it really served in this case, Ed?
No, I have to disagree with the judge's ruling here at the sentencing. He said that she's redeemable and that she has much to offer, and that she can go to prison, do her time, and then make come back out. And I just disagree with this totally. Okay. And the fact that she's eligible for parole. Now, we know she's going to appeal because the defense attorney's already said it. We're appealing, right? So they're going to fight this tooth and nail, this conviction tooth and nail. and they're going to appeal, and we don't know the outcome of that. And I hope it's not going to change the conviction. But that said, she at any time could have stopped photos from doing what he was going to do.
Or
She
could
could
have
have told,
reported.
right, I was going there next. She
Okay.
could have told the police, okay? She could have separated herself from him and not want anything to do with him anymore, or any part of him. Remember, she's raising her child with him. So
Yeah.
she was willing to live with him and marry him with her daughter, knowing that he killed his wife. Okay. She participated in the planning. She aided and abetted the plan. She covered up the plan and the murder. She did all these things and was found guilty of it. And yet she could have got 50 years. She gets 14.
14 and a half. A travesty of justice. And again, you know, I agree with you wholeheartedly on this thing, because the judge has the authority to give the max. And as we saw in Michigan with the state versus Shonda Vander Ark, the state versus Paul Ferguson, the judge went beyond the maximum sentences for Paul Ferguson. He gave him 30 to 100 years because of the circumstances that were presented in court. And this judge, up until the end, I thought was strong and was, you know, going to be fair and just.
He seems to think she can be rehabilitated. And I'm sorry, I just don't see that.
I don't agree either. I don't agree. Let us know in the chat. Let us know in the comment section on the replay what you think. Thank you, Somer, for gifting 5 Dutyron and Ed Wallace memberships.
Hi, good evening to you both. Yeah, that decision from the judge came down tonight after hours of emotional, raw statements from people whose lives have been forever changed since Jennifer's death. That, of course, actually probably more than anyone, includes her 5 young children who we heard from. They spoke publicly for the very first time. We also heard from Michelle Troconis's daughter and the defendant herself.
The following sentences are going to run concurrently.
After a 5-year wait, Michelle Troconis learning her fate.
20 years, execution suspended after 14 and 1/2 years, 5 years probation.
Moments before, the defendant spoke up.
I deeply regret ever being in a relationship with Fotis Doulos.
The judge making his decision after hours of victim impact statements.
Your Honor, I understand that sitting over there is a mother with a child and a family who love her. My mom once had that. We once had that, and she helped destroy it.
One by one, all 5 Doulos children pouring their hearts out for the judge, remembering and honoring their mom, Jennifer Farber Doulos.
She was my favorite person in the world, my role model.
Sharing their pain publicly for the first time since their mother was taken from them on May 24th, 2019.
Mom and Dad are words that only bring trauma and grief. I feel scared that it will happen again and again to everyone I love most.
Begging the judge to give a harsh sentence for Troconis, the woman convicted of conspiring with their dad to murder their mother.
An appropriate sentence, Your Honor, would be 50 years, 10 years for each child who lost their mother that day.
Behind the children, an army of Jennifer's close friends, supporting them and
And those impact statements that we heard from that army of close friends, that was high impact. I mean, that had me, when I played it back, and I listened to it live, but when I played it back with time, you know, outside of work, that was very emotional. And I'm just surprised that the judge didn't, again, he could have given her 50 years, up to 50 years, 14 and a half with a suspended sentence of 5 years probation.
And you know, the son's victim impact statement really got me. Okay. In addition to, I mean, the concurrent versus consecutive. I mean, why? I'm sorry. It shouldn't have been concurrent.
Yeah.
Okay. I just don't understand.
Very disappointed in this case. And
she still doesn't. She hasn't given up where the body is or where the body parts are. None of that has been given up. Obviously, she's not going to because she's appealing. But if she was going to be treated with such kid gloves in this sentencing, then maybe she would have come clean and say, okay, this is where the body parts are.
Darlene Wolf says here, the justice system is so broken. I say it's inconsistent. I don't think it's broken. I think it's very inconsistent. And Larry Woodcock made a reference, and I didn't even want to bring it up. But I know you caught on to it, Ed. He said, what if this would have happened in New York or California?
Yeah.
Did anybody catch that?
They may not have gotten the justice they were looking for.
Exactly. And I don't like to be, nitpicking and picking on statements and stuff, but he said that for a reason. Because had they been tried or those crimes committed in New York or California, these are two states that are very, very weak as it pertains to punishment of heinous.
There's no death penalty here.
There's no death penalty. Look, Lori didn't get a death penalty. She played that whole cuckoo game, and there was, for whatever reason, they decided not to go after her with the death penalty in her particular case. So she's got life without the possibility of parole. I hope she has not one good day, and that, again, people talk about Michelle Troconis. Hope those 14 and a half years are really rough, because look at Michelle Troconis before this trial started, and all of her appearance. She looked okay going in the early beginnings. And now as this thing moves along, she's aged quite a bit, because she's used to 2,000 thread cotton sheets and maid service and having someone make her meals for her. That's not happening in Connecticut State Prison, ladies and gentlemen. She's in for a rude awakening. So, and I won't lose 1 ounce of sleep over that. Let's let the rest of this play, Ed, and then we'll wrap it up.
Speaking out for her, as they have for 5 years.
We don't even have the comfort of knowing where she is. Where is she, Michelle?
Troconis staring straight ahead until her friends and family got their turn to speak, including her own daughter.
I am begging you to listen. I need my mom in my life.
A family that feels Troconis is paying for somebody else's crime.
The trial has taught all of us that fought these Zulus, the man we met and thought was a good man and worthy of my sister was not what he portrayed to us.
Look at her. Look at her face. She's crying there because she's listening to her family member beg for her mercy for her. She did not cry when the family and the army of friends of Jennifer Farber came up and gave she was just stone-faced, looking straight forward, no emotion. She tried to fake a little bit of crocodile tears at one point, but Michelle Troconis, this is really the pathetic look right here. She's crying because she knows her ass is grass, and she's not going to get to go to that 2,000 sheet cotton thread sheets and have her maid service and her gourmet meals cooked for her. That shit is all over.
I mean, what I'm about to say may sound harsh, right? But for Michelle's daughter, this isn't the type of mother you deserve. Okay? Yeah. Did she think of you when she was doing these things with Fotis, when she was planning these things with Fotis, when she moved you into another woman's house with a married man? They weren't even divorced.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she called Jennifer Farber the C word. Her mother called Jennifer a C word, and she hoped that her dog died. The dog was going through some health issues. And Michelle Troconis right here said, I hope your dog dies. And a lot of other nasty things. This is all on text messaging. This all came out in the trial.
Listen, this woman made her bed, and she has to lie in it now, okay? She made her bed, she made her decision, and now she has to pay for her actions, okay? And what the judge did does not pay for her actions.
It's an injustice in my eyes. People of Connecticut, people of the state of Connecticut should be embarrassed for what happened in this trial, because the prosecutor put forth a good case. We saw weeks and weeks of forensic evidence. We went over the garage and the evidence on the floor and the blood, stains inside the home and so much. There was so much details, Ed. And
Michelle's daughter deserves a mother that would have put the daughter first and never put them in that position, okay, to be affected by these crimes that she participated in. Okay? She wanted what somebody else had, okay? And she was willing to do whatever it took to have that lifestyle.
Yeah.
She did not put her daughter first.
110%. You hit it right out of the park, Ed. And I'm going to go out on a limb here. And I don't listen. I don't have a filter sometimes. Michelle Troconis was a home wrecking whore, and that is a fact, because she is sleeping with a married man and was moving her family in to Jennifer Farber's home. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the ultimate insult. I hope that not one of those 14 and a half years are good for her. I hope she has a miserable time, and I know she will have a miserable time in the state of Connecticut, because Connecticut State Prison is really run down, raggedy shithole. So welcome to your new home. And her face shows that she knows where she's going.
A family that feels Troconis is paying for somebody else's crime.
The trial has taught all of us that fought these Dulos, the man we met and thought was a good man and worthy of my sister was not what he portrayed to us.
Now, Troconis' defense attorney says he is now starting the appeal process. The notice of appeal,
Let's
he
shut
says,
that off. I don't want to hear about the appeal. That's just again, that's standard operating procedure. That's what happens in these cases. It's part of your legal right to appeal, but I would anticipate that that appeal will be denied. Ed, let's go to you for final thoughts. We have so much more. We could talk probably about another 2 hours about this case.
Easily. I'm just so pissed off about the sentencing, and and then her family and their statements. Well, did you advise your daughter? Did you advise your sister she shouldn't be shacking up with a married man? She shouldn't be exposing her daughter to this? Because what is the lesson that the daughter is learning? That infidelity is okay? That, really, come on. And that, now that the daughter, she's old enough to understand, what it is that her mother has been found guilty of. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the message that's being sent is a bad one by her. And again, they were standing on the court steps. Remember when she was found guilty? That same woman was standing there screaming that the justice system is wrong. They got it. Remember that? We played that whole thing. I mean,
yes.
Pathetic, sad, but true. But this is what this case is about, right here. I don't even like to call her Doulos by Fotis' last name. Jennifer Farber, 50 years old, mother of 5, May of 2019. This is just 1 minute and 30, and it just goes over some parts of the case, and then we'll wrap it up. We'll take a couple of questions from the audience.
5 years since Connecticut mother Jennifer Doulos' disappearance. Tonight, the woman convicted of helping plan and cover up her killing alongside Doulos' estranged husband now knows her fate. The judge sentenced Michelle Troconis to 20.
That's a great picture right there. I love that. How many of you guys in the chat? I don't feel 1 ounce of bad for this woman. And again, her family thought that they could buy her. They thought that they could buy a high-powered lawyer, which now that the trial's over, I could say it. Her lawyer sucked. That guy was horrible. Let us know what you think in the comment section. And I know, Ed, you agree. with me on that, I think.
Yeah, no, I don't care for him.
Years in prison.
Suspended after 14 and 1/2 years, 5 years probation.
Following heart-wrenching statements from Doulos' family.
For years,
So,
we
Mom,
searched for her remains, tracking down every lead.
Troconis appearing emotional as the victim's daughter spoke, just 10 years old when she lost her mom.
Michelle Troconis to me is the reason I feel completely lost and alone on nights when I cannot sleep. She's the reason why I've blocked out my childhood, and that day so much I can barely remember it.
Jennifer Doulos went missing in May of 2019. Police quickly zeroed in on her estranged husband, Troconis' boyfriend, who sat down with NBC's Dateline before he was charged with murder and later died by suicide.
Fotis, did you have anything to do with Jennifer's disappearance?
I did not, but I'd like to leave it at that.
Troconis addressing their relationship today in court.
I deeply regret ever being in a relationship with Fotis Doulos and bringing my daughter, my family, and myself into our lives, into his life.
Still tonight, her attorney vowing to appeal in a case.
anybody notice that our defendant, our now convicted defendant, Michelle Troconis, she spoke pretty good English there. And I think she has a good command of the King's English. She had to have the headphones in, right? That was just so we didn't give them any extra out. But that angered me that she held up the court a few times when those headphones were not working. Like I had technical difficulty last night with my microphone. She held up court under the ruse of that she couldn't understand English and that her first language was, she has a dual citizenship from Venezuela and United States. So she had a Spanish interpreter throughout the whole thing, piped into her headphones. But here we see her getting carted off to state prison. So, Ed, our final thoughts is the justice was served in the Chad and Shallow Vallow case. Both of them are incarcerated behind bars. Chad facing possibly a firing squad or death by lethal injection. Those are the two options for the state. But here, in this case, we do not see justice because she can and has an opportunity to be out in society, back into society, which our victim here, Jennifer Farber, we don't even know where she is. The family cannot even lay her to rest because they don't know where she is. Not fair. Justice was not served in this case. Mr. Wallace, you are unbelievable, diamond in the rough. You're like going live with us from Morocco, and I'm not saying this to toot your horn or to suck up to you, but I want you to know that the messages that I get from our community and our people are overwhelming with respect and support for you, and the efforts that you put forward here makes this an unbelievably great community. So thank you, Ed, for being here and always answering the call whenever I text you. Well, most of the time when I text you, listen in the middle of the night. But I appreciate you, Ed, tremendously.
I love being a part of Crime Time with Dutyron and being part of this true crime family. I think I better call my gastrointestinal doctor to go for a colonoscopy for all the smoke you just blew up my ass, and see.
Yeah, you love it, Ed. Hold on a second. Hold on. Where is it?
Stop breathing down my neck.
No, but seriously, the amount of information you provide us here, and the dedication that you show to our true crime community is second to none. So you could take that colonoscopy and stuff it right back up there again.
Remember, folks, don't forget for your colonoscopy. It's a lifesaver. And I'm all joking aside, it is a lifesaver. All right. Colorectal cancer is one of the easiest cancers to detect and find and treat. So,
Every 5 years.
Or sooner, depending on your family history.
Yes.
And I know my doctor's watching, and don't worry, Dr. Joe, I'm going to make an appointment for one.
There you go. Well, on behalf of Crime Time with Dutyron and Ed Wallace, we want to thank you guys all for being here. We want to thank the super chatters. We want to thank the folks who became members, and here they are. True Crime Fan PV, thank you for becoming a member. Schmitty is always reaching into her purse and throwing us cash. She said the Daybell justice right, this one wrong. Absolutely. Somer, thank you for gifting out those 5 memberships. And Muddy Paws, thank you for the super chat. Haley, thank you for becoming a member. And Robbie is back on the roll call. Robbie's back on with us from Australia. Thank you for being a member again. Appreciate you. Love you guys. And again, we send strength, prayers, and positive vibes to the victims and their families. And as we saw and what we played during this hour-long live stream was highlighting the families. And we couldn't highlight all of the family members, but there are so many out there. We talk about the victims' families. They're the ones that are left here in the Troconis situation here with Michelle Troconis. She could have given up that information, but she chose to further victimize the children and the family members. Jennifer Farber's mom, Gloria, is in her 80s, and she may never get to find out what really happened to her daughter. And we see it in so many of the cases. So shame on you, Michelle Troconis. I hope you rot in state corrections. Ed, I know you got something to say. Sorry for my rant.
No worries, folks. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your valuable time with us here, myself and Ron. Thanks for spreading the word about our community here at Dutyron. It's a pleasure being with you all and educating you and talking to you all about these cases. But remember, folks, keep spreading the word about us. And our numbers are phenomenal. I can't believe how we've grown so much. And that's all because of you.
Yeah. Amen to that.
But that said, remember all.
So a little bit of Morocco technical difficulties, but Ed was given the standard: stay safe, stay prepared, and watch your 6. It just got garbled up, Ed. But
I'm sorry.
I took it over for you. You want to do a do-over? You got it good now.
Oh, okay. So again, stay safe, stay prepared, watch your 6.
Good night from New York, and good day from New York, and good night from Morocco. We'll see you all soon on the next one. Thank you for joining. Stand by for a message from the cop team. Kara, Ed's dog, Oscar, my puppy, and Popeye. He's been cursing up a storm during this live stream. Thank God for the limiter, so you don't have to hear it. Good day, everybody.